All right, so looking at what we're working on, we are going to start talking about quadratics. Now, we've talked a lot about quadratics throughout the year, and so this is going to focus on quadratics as a whole, and then we're going to add a few new things. Now, for this particular lesson, all right, it's going to center around graphing in vertex form, which we've done a lot this year. So to kind of get you thinking about that, all right, and maybe pull some things back out of your memory that we've talked about this year, go ahead and do the opener here. So graph problems 1 and 2 here. All right, identify the vertex, your A value, your 3A value, and then go ahead and graph both of those real quick. Flip the video back on, and we'll see what you remembered. All right, now I'm going to go through these just as a reminder in case you forgot some of this information, right? So when we look at this, remember this is our vertex, this is the x-coordinate, this is the y-coordinate, and it's opposite of the inside and same on the outside. So my vertex is 4, +1 right here. The A value is this number in front right here, so that would be 2. And if I multiply that value by 3, that means it would be 6. And then we talked about that I do my vertex A, 3A to generate my point. So from here, I'm going to do my A value, so up 1, or excuse me, up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the left 1. And then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right 1, and 6 to the left 1. And then that generates our graph, just like that. Okay, now when I look at number 2, notice this is a +6. All right, the negative is part of our formula. All right, so what this tells me is that my vertex is -6 and then +4. Now, the number in front, if I see just a negative, remember that is -1, and then 3A would be -3. So then to graph this, I would go to -6, +4 right here, and then I'm going to go down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the left 1. And then I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3 to the right 1, down 3 to the left 1, and that's going to generate my graph just like so. All right, so we're going to be doing a lot of graphing in vertex form. Okay, now, all right, what we're going to do is add some details and some more information to our graph. So let's talk about a few of those things. So let's just scroll down here to the bottom of the page here. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about is something called the axis of symmetry. And we've referred to this, all right, in general terms this year. We've talked about the symmetry. All right, but there's actually a vertical line that runs through the vertex of a quadratic. You can see that I drew that in here on our example. There's our vertical line. That's our axis of symmetry. All right, so we can always write that equation. Then what we know is that the points mirror each other horizontally, all right, on each side of, all right, that axis of symmetry. Now, so when we write that, remember that the equation of a vertical line is always x equals a number. So we usually say x equals a. All right. So now what we know then, all right, if our vertex, right, we said our vertex is HK, what we know then is that our equation of our symmetry will always be x equals h. So whatever that value is in our vertex. So up here, notice it's 4. So notice if I drew my axis of symmetry in this guy, all right, that equation would be x equals 4 or x equals h. All right. So we should know that that's what we're going to get every time. Okay, so now let's flip to page 2 of our new notes here. All right, now when we talk about, all right, a vertex, all right, with a quadratic, we know it's either a maximum value or a minimum value, all right, based on whether the quadratic opens up or down. All right, and we've kind of looked for that when we did our table work at the very beginning of the year. All right, now what we're going to work on is just some terminology, all right, associated with that. All right, so now the x value of the vertex tells you where the max or min happens, while the y value tells you that what that value is. All right, so when I look here, all right, at this problem, I can see that my vertex, right, is 3, -4, or my turning point is 3, -4. So here's what I would say. At x equals 3, this quadratic has a, and notice this is a minimum, right? So we go down, this is the lowest point, we go back up, has a minimum value of, and the smallest value it gets to is -4. So at x equals 3, the quadratic has a minimum value of -4. All right, now looking at our second example here, right? So now we can see that the vertex is 2, -3. And this time we hit a maximum, right? It's like the top of the hill versus the bottom of the valley. So now what I can say is that x equals 2, this quadratic has a maximum value of, and the maximum value you get, the highest it ever gets, is -3. And so we're just associating some language with this, and this will help you when we get to some application questions, all right, later in this unit. All right, it'll help you definitely in some word problems and different things, all right, as you progress, all right, through math over the next couple of years as well. All right, and the final new piece of information here, all right, okay, is where does our graph intersect the x-axis? All right, and we call those x-intercepts or roots or solutions. So when we solve an equation, all right, and it's equal to 0, we're finding the x-intercepts or solutions. So these three terms and roots, right, are all synonymous, all right, okay, and they kind of mean the same things, it's just different context. So typically when I'm graphing, I'm looking for x-intercepts. When I'm looking, right, in an algebraic problem with just an equation, I'm looking for solutions, okay? Now, we already know this, right? So we know that I could have two solutions, I could have one solution, or I might have no solutions. So those ideas that we've built, all right, are still going to come through when we are graphing, okay? And so we just have to figure out, okay, so, an x-intercept of 1, 0, and 5, 0. One x-intercept of negative 4, 0, and then no x-intercepts. All right, so now let's go through and let's kind of put all of that together, all right, on the next page. Okay, so we're going to graph, right, and identify some of those key pieces. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just start with our graph, right? So this is basically the opener. These are things that we've been doing, all right, all year. Okay, so when I look here, my vertex at number 3, all right, for number 3 would be negative 7, negative 8. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that, negative 7, and then negative 8 would be right here. And then my A value is 3. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 to the right one, up 1, 2, 3 to the left one. All right. And then 3A would be 9. So now I'm going to go up 9 from those points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then to the right one. And then up 9 to the left one. All right. And there is my graph. Okay. So now axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry is that vertical line that runs through the vertex, right? And if we were to fold our graph over that line, right, the left side and the right side are matched perfectly. And we can see that that's the vertical line. It goes through the vertex, all right? And so the equation of my axis of symmetry would be x equals negative 7. Okay, so that's the first thing, identify the axis of symmetry. Now we're going to describe whether the graph has a maximum or minimum value. So at x equals, and we said negative 7, and I know that this is a minimum value, the quadratic opens up, all right, has a minimum value of, and the smallest this value gets to is negative 8. All right, now I'm going to look for my x-intercepts. And notice they're not always going to be nice, pretty answers like 2 or 3 or 8. So you may have to do some approximating. Now, that's where we're going to get into some algebraic things in a few lessons, right? Because graphing and finding those x-intercepts is not as exact as some of the algebraic methods we will discuss later. So I can see that my first x-intercept on the left here is between negative 8 and negative 9. All right, so I'm going to say like negative 8.70. And on the right side here, it's almost a negative 5 here. All right, so negative 5.20, something like that. All right, and that's all it is, right? So it's really a lot of the pieces that we've already talked about this year, right? But now we're giving it maybe a little bit of new language, right? Making sure we identify that all at one time. All right, sorry if that was if it cut me off there. My disk was full, so I had to delete some files to make room for this video. So, all right, so once again, so we're just summing everything up that we've talked about this year, giving it some new language, all right, putting it all together. All right, so let's look at number 4 here. Okay, so my vertex. Now remember, right, if I have parentheses, that means I have an x value. All right, if I don't have parentheses, what that's telling me is my x value is 0, so I don't need the parentheses. So my vertex here would be 0, 7. So I'm going to be on the y-axis here. So 0, 7 would be here. My a value is negative 2. So from that, I'm going to go down 2 to the right one, down 2 to the left. Didn't go down 2. Down 2, all right, to the right one and left one. And then 3a would be down 6, all right, negative 6. So from here, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right one. And then I can mirror that. All right, I'm going to skip those points there. You guys can ignore those. All right, and then there you go. Now notice this time my axis of symmetry is right here. It is the y-axis. Now, if you don't know, the equation of the y-axis is just x equals 0. All right, and then now we're going to describe the max or min that happens at our vertex, right? So now we know we have a maximum here, right? So at x equals 0, this quadratic has a maximum value of, and the highest it gets to is 7. All right, and then I'm going to describe my intercepts here. So once again, I'm really close to -2 and I'm really close to 2. So maybe I'm going to do like -1.80, all right, and 1.80. And that's all we have to do. All right, so let's take a look at number 5. All right, so once again, looking at our vertex, right? My vertex is 2, and then there's nothing out here, so it's going to be 0. So my vertex is 2, 0. All right, so that would be right here on the x-axis. My a value is 3. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 to the right one, up 1, 2, 3 to the left one. And then notice this time, my 3a is 9. So that's going to take me off my graph, and you can just kind of estimate where that is. All right, but that just means it's going to be pretty steep. So if those 4th and 5th points fall off the graph, don't worry too much. All right, and we'll just estimate those like that. Okay, oh, there we go, back in focus. All right, so now once again, we can see that that axis of symmetry is that vertical line right here. All right, okay, sorry that keeps going in and out of focus there for you. Let me focus back in for you. All right, and so my axis of symmetry is the vertical line, x equals 2. That also tells me where my vertex is, right? And now, once again, I can see this is a minimum value. So at x equals 2, this quadratic has a minimum value of, and notice the smallest it gets, all right, is 0. All right, it doesn't get below the x-axis. And then notice I only have one x-intercept, and it's a nice, pretty x-intercept this time. All right, an integer answer, just 2, 0. All right, let's do one more together, and that'll wrap up our lesson for today. All right, so now, looking at this guy, all right, I can see that my vertex is going to be -5, +3. So -5, +3 would be right here. Now, once again, if I don't see a number in front, that number is a 1. We just don't write a 1 in front. So that means my a value is 1 this time. So up 1 to the right one, up 1 to the left one, and then 3a would be 3. So from here, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 to the right one, up 1, 2, 3 to the left one, draw my graph, just like so, and then I am finished. Now, once again, looking at those key pieces here, right? My vertical line through my vertex is that guy. All right, that's going to be x equals -5. All right, and then what I can see is that x equals -5. I see I get a minimum value. There's nothing below the vertex here, so it's a minimum value of 3. And then what I see now, right, is that there are no x-intercepts, right? It does not hit the x-axis. There's no solutions here, all right? And so we'll just say none. All right, and so that is, all right, an introduction to, all right, graphing and all these key things that we are now adding to our graph. All right, so as always, if you have any questions, anything that doesn't make sense, make sure you highlight that, circle it, bring those questions to class, and we'll see you then.